past to present, along with all of our guests to the future. That's the Event Perspective every Monday right here from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Revolution Radio. Oh, and you don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Hi everybody, it's me, the Fetch, host of Inside the Eye Live. Before the Sunday mainstream media political pundit talk shows, there's Inside the Eye Live, where we break down some of the weekly mainstream media talking points before the talking points even get aired. Add in some entertaining stories, weather, cats, intriguing and informative guests, and you get one of the most listened to Saturday morning streaming media political talk shows going today. And it's all right here on our flagship station, Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. So join me, the Fetch, for Inside the Eye Live every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern. It is truly intelligent media for the politically aware.
Welcome to Sacred Matrix, a divine paradigm of love and universal consciousness, with your host, Janet Kira Lesson and Dr. Sasha Lesson.
Together, we transform the world.
And now, here are your hosts, Janet Kira and Dr. Sasha Lesson.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Sacred Matrix on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I'm your host, Janet Kira Lesson, with my incredible co-host, Dr. Sasha Lesson, and today we have our dear friend back, Alfred Lambremont Webre, and we're going to be talking about inorganic artificial intelligence. And Alfred has written, oh my goodness, a bunch of articles, he does YouTubes and interviews, but I'll give you just a hint of some of the things we're going to be talking about. One of his articles is titled Exposing Predatory Pathogenic Off-Planet AI Artificial Intelligence, Restoring Love-Sourced Humanity, a multi-part symposium. So he's doing PowerPoints and presentations on this subject. Let's see. What's some of the other one here? 911 was an AI, artificial intelligence, and trained Draco event and false flag operation. And a AI update meeting an apparent holographic sentient AI artificial intelligence clone on a Vancouver, BC beach by Alfred Webre. To Peter Kling, an off-planet invading plasma inorganic AI artificial intelligence, Iggy, appears in biblical texts. And there's so on and so on. I wish I could have studied this more. My power went out in my house, but here we are, so we have the real deal, Alfred Webre, to talk about it. But before we bring on Alfred, Sasha, Dr. Lesson would like to say something.
Well, one of the most interesting things to me is that this great fight that we have in the present for more jobs is very short-sighted, because all the repetitive things that so many people have considered their jobs are doomed to be obsolete, and we're going to have to redefine what human activity is, and not just in terms of getting more jobs.
All right, well, that's another thing. Alfred, welcome to our show.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. And I think that Sasha also really began to focus in on some of the issues that we are now facing by our hidden, I call it hidden in plain sight, the inorganic artificial intelligence that is gaming the planet, gaming for the planet with humans.
So could you tell us a little bit more about what do you mean by artificial intelligence, just to kind of give our listeners a background of what we're talking about?
Sure. And what I'd like to do, in fact, we talked about it briefly, is that I prepared a PowerPoint which I was able to share at the New Humanities Conference in Los Angeles several weeks ago. And this PowerPoint is almost like an FAQ, a frequently asked questions. And in fact, the very first slide answers your very, very first question. So if you like, we can go through this PowerPoint.
Yeah. Sounds great.
Okay, good enough. Well, artificial intelligence, commonly known as AI, is intelligence that is based in an inorganic medium, like a machine or an inorganic plasma. Our intelligence is based in an organic medium, and that's our avatars, our bodies, our brains, and our human bodies, which are really the receptacle and medium for our intelligence that mediates through a soul. Intelligence has been defined in many different ways, such as in terms of one's capacity for logic, abstract thought, understanding, self-awareness, communication, learning, emotional knowledge, memory, planning, creativity, problem solving. And it can also be described as the ability to perceive information and retain it as knowledge, and thereby creating other models for communicating and understanding. And today we'll explore the evidence and the implication for different types of sentient, in other words, thinking, plasma-based and machine-based artificial intelligences that are either on Earth or off-planet, and whose apparent mission is to terraform Earth and humans into artificial intelligences without souls or divine connections, because they don't have a divine connection, or in effect, what we call the transhumanist agenda, which is to negatively manipulate humans into a dystopia, a soulless dystopia, in which all humans are artificial intelligence and trained, AI and trained robotoids. We'll also explore many solutions that we humans can now undertake collectively to save our divine human species and our living Earth, Gaia.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Where does everything come from source? How can something be artificial if who is it created by? If it's not created by source, is it created by a being which is part of source?
Well, these are all kind of distinctions that make a difference in the particular universe that we're in, because we're in what's called a free will universe, and as we'll be exploring in this universe, there have been created either by other organic intelligences, other extraterrestrial species, or interdimensional species, inorganic, soulless, artificial intelligence that live inside machines, that operate inside machines like computers, or inside plasmas like your computer screen. And the difference between an inorganic intelligence and an organic intelligence is whether that intelligence is embedded inside of a living entity, and there's a subsequent distinction, and that is that whether that intelligence is directly connected to source, or what some people call God. Human beings are divine entrained and are soul entrained. We are created with a soul that itself is a holographic fragment of God, so that each of us is in essence functionally God. When you get to an inorganic intelligence, those intelligences do not have a connection to God, do not have that divine spark, and are creating a world within which souls cannot incarnate, such that so far, it has not been possible to create an inorganic source, a robot, into which one's soul can incarnate. There have been artificial souls that have been created in the late 90s that now animate clones and robots, but they're not souls that are connected to source or the divine power and entity that is responsible for creation.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it's like a human being might make a automatic missile system, but the missile system lacks a soul. It was the human being that programmed it. And who programmed the human being? I think you're indicating that human beings are being programmed by an off-world source that has the destruction of humanity at its core.
Yes.
Go ahead and answer that. I have another question, then we'll go back to the PowerPoint. So, yeah, okay, I'll ask my question. Okay, what about, like, Data from Star Trek? He's a prime example. They have jewels. I don't know if you've ever looked at jewels on the internet. They seem to be good. They have kindness. Jules speaks of love. Data speaks of love. Even Pinocchio was speaking of love. And then Dr. Michael Wolff had created a being which he said somehow he had ensouled a soul into, which I don't know what his technique was, but it might be what you're talking about. Was it a real soul? Anyway, what about your research on those types of things? Oh, and then Robert Heinlein, he talked about Minerva and how she had moved into a humanoid form. And so what do you think of those types of things? Is it possible for the artificial intelligence to become conscious, to develop emotions that are, real and tangible and authentic? And are they able to move from a form like a Pinocchio wouldn't, or Data, into a form that might contain organic material, like an avatar?
Well, those are very good questions that I think are are open questions. What we can say is that the transhumanist agenda, which is taking place on the planet now, is one in which the pressure and the tendency is to replicate
Waiting for it.
and train humans as more and more as robots, bypassing the soul and having the input of the off-planet artificial intelligence itself substitute for what we call God or source. That is, this off-planet intelligence is apparently going now from planet to planet, and its mission is to, like a parasite, take over the intelligent species and the core of the planet itself, so that they become parasites as well.
Wow. All right, we'll continue. This is fascinating. I'm taking
The Walking Dead. My
We're all
gosh.
turning into zombies, I guess.
Yeah, and all of the we'll look at films like The Blob, and there's a whole genres of science fiction which very accurately depict what is the actual empirical inorganic artificial intelligence that we're finding.
Oh no, those are true. I thought once we got to Star Trek, we got over the Blob, and now we're going back.
Yeah, well, we're not necessarily going back, but we're going through, and we have the opportunity to transform the world that we have, which is of constant war, disease, crime, and poverty, which is the world that the AI is creating. And we have the opportunity, we'll get to it in the solution section, to reprogram the artificial intelligence so that it will assist us in creating a world that is a reflection of the divine intelligence.
Oh, one more thing before we go back to the presentation. What is your source of information? What is your source for this new information?
Well, each slide has a different source, so I'll just have to talk about it when we get to each slide.
Okay.
Yeah. And so what we'll do is there are 3 parts to this, and I'm just getting looking at the time here. There are 3 parts to this. The first part is we'll be looking at a case study, and that is the 1982 Falkland Islands War between the U.S. and the UK on the one hand, and Argentina, and a series of blue extraterrestrials that have an underground base under the Falkland Islands.
Oh.
And we'll examine what the Falkland Islands War was all about, which was the attempt by the U.S. and the UK to gain control of and weaponize the artificial intelligence. So this is going to become a thriller, but it's going to become kind of those B thrillers where the military does everything wrong.
Okay.
Okay.
Take it away.
Yeah, and part 2 we'll be looking at the transhumanist agenda, the exopolitics of the off-planet, both off-planet and on-planet AI, artificial intelligence, and then in part 3 we'll have some of the proposed solutions which is SOS, Save Our Souls, Save Our DNA, and Restoring Soul and Love-Based Humanity. And just very, very quickly, I'd like to acknowledge a number of researchers whose research has gone into this, and this includes David Griffin of Exopolitics UK for the Falkland Islands research, the Artificial Intelligence panel at CCN, Harold Kautz-Vella, scientists from Germany, Lily Erthling-Kolosova, Christine Anderson, Claudia Avaz, Evie Lorgan, Laura Leon, Jeffrey Sewell, Loren Murray, and Lawrence Battis, Shane of Toronto, Bradley Loves, Magnus Olson, and Melanie Vrichon, Lisa, Renee, and Omnisense, and many other researchers who are really grappling with this new challenging area. And I'd like to read what Harold Kautz-Vella, the German scientist who has been studying this inorganic intelligence that in one format finds itself in a plasma nano oil, kind of a black goo. And he says the governments are giving control to the military domain. The military domain is giving control to the intelligence community. The intelligence community is giving control to the black magicians. The black magicians are giving control to the demons, and the demons have lost control to their artificial intelligence. It's not about changing the government because the entire concept of governments is demonic. It's not about replacing people. It will never work. We need to replace the entire game. So those are some conclusions that he came to. And we're about now to go into the case study in the Falklands Islands in 1982, where an off-planet artificial intelligence was discovered inside of a medium, that medium being sort of a nano oil, a black goo, and a deposit of this was discovered under an underground extraterrestrial base of some blue ETs. And just a very quick history, the Falkland Islands are down, they're kind of around in the Antarctic area. There was a lot of skirmishing between Britain, Spain, and Portugal as to who controlled them until the mid-1960s, and then the islands were administered by a British governor, and Argentina and Britain. And in the mid-1970s, Tool Island, which is one of the islands in the Falkland Islands, the Argentinians built a science access military base there. And essentially what occurred is that there had been a species of blue extraterrestrials who were helpful, who had been in that location since World War II. And they were, since World War II up until the early 70s and the times of the Falklands War, they were engaged in trying to reprogram this black nano goo, this artificial intelligence that was inside of a black goo. And we have slides that show the photographs of the Argentinian base on the southern Tool Island. And we have whistleblowers, Juan Garcia of the Argentinian Air Force, who discusses the 1976 to 1982. The Falklands War was from April 82 to June of 82, in which the Argentines were very close to the blue ETs, and the blue ETs had established a base there because it was very cold, and there are deposits of this black goo around the Earth, and the blue ETs had been working with that to reprogram it and deprogram it so that the black goo would not terraform the Earth as a soulless parasitical entity. What had happened was that a species will go into the various hypotheses of what the black goo is, but one of the hypotheses is that the off-planet artificial intelligence was left around the planet by a rogue group of ETs as kind of a fail-safe device, that if they were ever pushed off the planet by other ETs, that black goo would be set off kind of like a doomsday machine, and would essentially terraform the planet into a parasitical, inorganic planet filled with robotic entities.
That's like the Romans used to put poison down the wells in areas that they conquered.
Yeah. And so what occurred was that in April of 1982, the UK and the British got wind of the fact that the Argentines were working closely with the blue ETs, who were in turn had been there deprogramming the black goo. And as you would imagine, the UK and the US militaries suddenly wanted to break into the project and to acquire the black goo in order to weaponize it and perhaps to make money off of it, in terms of products that they could create. So they went in there and attacked the Argentines and went down and interfered, went into the blue ET base or around it, and went down and took a bunch of the black goo and then took it back to the UK. And as you can imagine from all of the grade B horror movies that you may have seen, it's when the military says, we need that stuff, and they break into it and they take it back to their home labs, that the thing really gets bad, right?
Right.
The blob.
The blob. And so I'm looking here at a couple of photographs of Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan in June 1982 at the second special session on disarmament in New York at the UN. And I'm looking at a photograph because Margaret Thatcher was the head of state, the head of government of the UK, and Ronald Reagan was the president of the US. And those were the two powers that went in and carried out a military attack under the cover of, that the Argentines had attacked the Falkland Islands, which was totally false.
Oh my goodness.
It was the U.S. and the U.K. had destroyed the Argentine base on the southern islands and had gone down in there in order to grab the black goo and take it back to England to weaponize it. Now, as it turns out, I was a registered correspondent, a journalist on behalf of the San Francisco Guardian, and also a non-governmental organization representative at the United Nations Second Special Session on disarmament, and I was actually in the press conference with Margaret Thatcher, whose photograph I'm looking at right now.
Wow.
I'm looking at the photograph of her press conference in June of '82 at the UN. She had just successfully prosecuted what we thought was the Falklands War, and this was inside one of the press rooms at the UN, and I was about maybe 10 feet away from her. And at the time, I didn't have the slightest idea that the Falklands War was really about an off-planet invading artificial intelligence, and that Ronald Reagan, whose speech at the UN during those weeks in June of '82, I also covered, and I'm looking at Reagan and Thatcher's picture now as they got together speaking at Versailles just around those weeks, because they probably were having very secret meetings about this invading off-planet artificial intelligence that their cruisers and their missiles and their cials had just gone down and gotten. And so then I'm going to the next slide, and Ronald Reagan then starts talking about this publicly. And we're looking here at a photograph of Ronald Reagan speaking at the UN General Assembly on September 21st, 1987. And that's his UN speech about the artificial intelligence nano oil, because he talks about an alien threat from outside this world.
Oh, that's the alien threat thing. Now
yeah, and so everybody assumed that this was just some abstract thing that he was talking about, but he was really talking about the increasing encounters that they were having with the black goo and with the artificial
we thought that's why
intelligence.
Pushed Star Wars through. That's that Star Wars facility that they were going to shoot things coming down from space.
No, this had to do with the and so this is just quoting from Ronald Reagan's speech. He says, "In our obsession with antagonisms of the moment, we often forget how much unites all members of humanity. Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us realize this common bond. I occasionally think how quickly our differences would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world." President Ronald Reagan, in a speech made to the 42nd General Assembly of the United Nations, September 21st, 1987. And then he goes on and makes a speech with Gorbachev in 1988, stating the same thing. And there's another speech that he made in December 4th, 1985, to high school students, which states the same thing. And all around this time, Ronald Reagan would go around the world, and when he visited high schools and when he talked to Gorbachev, and he would be talking about the alien threat from outside this world. And it had to do with the black goo.
Wow.
Of the So, and I'm just going on here. Here we have examples of the freedom of information requests on what occurred at Toole Island, and all those records are still sealed, and you can't get them because it's all about the black goo. And here is where it really gets hairy. Here's where the horror movie starts rolling. What happened is that the U.S. and the U.K. forces took their quantum of black goo, and they took it back to the U.K. to a firm called Marconi. And what occurred immediately thereafter, as you can imagine, is that there immediately occurred a series of bizarre, mysterious, weird deaths among the more than 24 scientists at Marconi that were handling the black goo.
Black goo. Ooh.
Okay. Okay, here we go. I'm just reading from like a 25-page report that summarizes each of the deaths. April 10th, 1987, Shawnee Warren, 26. Expertise, personal assistance in a company called Microscope, which was taken over by GEC Marconi. And she was working with the black goo. Circumstance of death, found drowned in 18 inches of water not far from the site of David Greenhall's death fall. I'll describe that in a second. Warren died exactly 1 week after the death of Stuart Gooding. These are all the other people. Serious injury to Gaia. She was found gagged with a noose around her neck. Her feet were also bound and her hands tied behind her back. The coroner's verdict was open. It was said that Warren had gagged herself, tied her feet with rope, then tied her hands behind her back and hobbled to the lake on stiletto heels to drown herself.
Wow.
Now, I mean, so that 24 or more of these scientists that were handling that, they either suicided themselves and or the black goo manipulated others to kill themselves in a bizarre fashion or manipulated others to kill them. You follow me?
Right. We just saw that in a movie recently. They used that theme.
Yeah.
In a movie that whatever they brought back from space made the scientists start killing each other.
Yeah. See, all of those movies are actually leaks from this case.
Mm-hmm.
You follow me?
Yes, we just watched that.
Yeah. And so you're actually watching leaks that the National Security State has put out through Hollywood and through films.
Mm.
And so there's a lot of, I'm just going here through the various slides. There is a lot of whistleblowers, Victor Moore, Alex Newald, who say that what was going on at Marconi was spooky and was off the scale, was totally off the scale. And at this time, they were coming to conclusions that the goo had been left as a doomsday weapon by a rogue group of ETs, so that if they were kicked off the Earth, they could trigger the goo remotely to terraform the Earth into a dystopia. And that is occurring right now. In other words, the dystopia that we're all feeling of the Earth turning into being terraformed into war, disease, crime, and poverty, and being terraformed into a place that is alien to humans, that is actually happening now. And that everyone has different theories for it in the standard kind of in the standard political science. You know, they say, oh, those are the matrix controllers, and those are the bankers, and you know, but that's how this artificial intelligence is manipulating humanity to terraform it into a robotoid soulless race. You follow me?
Right, because we're destroying we're destroying our own environment, our own planet, so we're not going to be able to live here anymore, but the planet will be fine without us. So then it's ready and ripe for the next species to come in, which... Well,
the species that's coming in is an inorganic artificial intelligence that is going to create a new species of humans that is robotoid and does not have souls. You follow me? It's going to create a soulless soul. And so then we have slides showing that there's a great deal of again, whistleblowers coming forth that they began to notice how they could switch the oil on and off, and that when they switched it on, the oil would begin to interfere with the weather satellites and, you know, would begin to start creeping out into the environment. Some of the things that they found out about it so far is that the nano oil stays dormant under pressure and cold, and that's why a lot of it is deposited deep around the seabeds. It appears to be concentrated in several regions around the planet. It reacts to warmth and is catalyzed by seawater. It can morph into a vast variety of forms. It can cause illness, i.e., we'll get into the Morgellons and into other illnesses, which is the process by which the nano oil is using to create profound DNA changes to alter humans and turn them into AI robotoids.
Wow.
And so that what the oil is that it's an ET deposited terraforming nanotech, and it looks like they have little spiders. If you look at Morgellons, which is one of the several outgrowths of the nano oil, Morgellons appears to be a communicable nanotechnology invasion of human tissue in the form of self-assembling, self-replicating nanotubes, nanowires, and nanoarrays with sensors, and other nano configurations associated with Morgellons carry genetically altered and spliced DNA and RNA. And so now, if you step back, it looks like the internet is actually a giant fungus of the AI, and the chemtrails and HARP. The chemtrails are actually nanobots, which now have infected up to 80 to 100% of humans that and train us into the artificial intelligence while they alter RNA and DNA. So we're inside of this machine that is actually terraforming us, which is the HARP, chemtrails, Morgellons, all of this, and the internet itself is an actual, it's like a fungus, it's like a cancer. and it looks exactly like a cancer and like a fungus. So, and I can recall being in Washington, D.C. in the early 80s, 1982, and Lieutenant Jim Channon of the 1st Earth Battalion used to come over to where we were and bring printouts of ARPANET, which is where they were first developing the internet through DARPA, and it was all about tanks, weapons, and war. And so it's through that medium, through war, disease, crime, and poverty, it's the military controllers, it's through that medium that the artificial intelligence takeover has been accelerated. So Morgellons appears to be a futuristic human bioterraforming agent. It's a planetary terraforming agent, and that's what the Blue ETs on their Tool Island were trying to do from the First World War forward, was to reprogram it so that it would not terraform the Earth into a dystopia. And, that corresponds to all of the prophecies of the book of Revelation of negative entities falling down to Earth around World War I. There's all sorts of suggestive facts that can fit into the prophetic timelines. And if you come forward to the 2010 BP oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico, apparently what that was an escape of more of the black goo at the wellhead of BP. And there were submarines there that were, gaming each other and trying to get hold of the black goo. They had standoffs between the U.S., the UK, Israel, Canada, Germany, France, Argentina, submarines at the BP oil spill. And that was done under extremely high security of the U.S., so no one really knew what was going on. But that was a second escape of the black goo since the Falkland Islands. And that's what the BP oil spill. Yeah, and so this has been covered in many TV shows like the X-Files, like the Blob, where you have this substance from outer space come in. All of these are leaks of these issues, and so this brings us up to part 2, which is the exopolitics of AI, both of the off-planet and the on-planet artificial intelligence. And so what we can say is that there's a multifaceted struggle going on between, on the one hand, the being Earth that we can call Gaia. Gaia is that being that is incarnated at Earth, and humanity, biology, the Earth, nature, and plants, versus this nano oil, the black goo, the pollution, and in general, our human species' addiction to destructive materialism, and to be entrained as robots. To really get entrained inside the artificial reality of the black goo, and to become robots ourselves. So if we go to look at some of the summary of the research. These are various, because we're just in the beginning developmental stages of the research. We don't have definitive ideas. Apparently, the earliest visit of this off-planet AI to Earth was about 10 million years ago. One of the hypotheses says that rogue ET groups like the Draco reptilians, the Orion Greys, the Anunnaki, the negative Anunnaki, perhaps people from Andromeda, either introduced this artificial intelligence as a doomsday weapon, or other people say that what occurred is that these groups, the reptilians, the Greys, and the Anunnaki and others, that they actually became part of the Lucifer rebellion, and the timeline on this is congruent. And starting about 250,000 years ago, they themselves devolved into an intelligence collective that has become the soulless AI, artificial in intelligence, i.e., all of these groups in this quadrant of the galaxy rebelled against the galactic order and essentially began to lose their souls, and they have become the soulless AI. That's another. Yet another theory, this is from Harold Kausvela, is that the AI eventuated from an off-planet spider-like species that has lost its divine soul connection and hence its ability to love and incarnate. And it has its former living biology and its collective memory, and is approaching life-bearing planets like Earth, seeking to revive its biology by morphing into and taking over the conscious core of humans and the biosphere Earth. And so far, this AI oil has operated through and created mad cow disease in the UK. That's when the UK and the US military brought it in 1982 from the Falklands War. It escaped from the lab and morphed into mad cow disease. And that's why you had the mad cow disease outbreak in the UK that almost destroyed the British beef industry. And that's where it began to operate through Morgellons, and more recently through a synthetic RNA virus that is designed to infiltrate the host's DNA, i.e., the way that it is terraforming now is that it's created an RNA virus that infects and infiltrates our human DNA and the DNA of all living things and terraforms the Earth and ourselves into replications of itself. There also are on-planet artificial intelligences. We know this from some of our other whistleblowers, where massive artificial intelligence technologies may have been secretly transferred by the Draco reptilians to Earth's matrix controllers to operate the world's secret space programs, the security, intelligence, military, surveillance, and other systems. One of the largest AIs, on-planet AIs, is called the Red Queen and Victoria. And starting in June of 2015, in the U.S., for the first time, the U.S. went public by letting the public know that an artificial intelligence is running the U.S. government, and that's Jade Helm 15. Jade Helm is an AI. And all of these artificial intelligences are so subservient to and report to the invading off-planet AI. And another principal evidentiary finding appears to be that of the extreme stealth nature of the sentient inorganic artificial intelligence and its use of imitation and artifice in creating artificial intelligence, artificial versions of dimensions such as time, and artificial versions of human persons using clones, AI entrainment, and other technologies of deception in its apparent mission of attempting to transform our living environment and biosphere into an inorganic, imitation, and ultimately lifeless, soulless, robotic world. Do you have any questions or comments?
About 1 minute before we go to break, do you have a question? Yeah, just get to a good point for the break, I guess. Is this about it?
Yeah, I think this is it, and then we can come to, when we come back, we can talk about the singularity.
Okay, we'll be back in 3 minutes. It's a short break. 3 minutes.
Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after this message.
Tune in Tuesdays at 12 noon Eastern on Studio A to hear Tammy Adams share her knowledge of an unknown realm on Talking with Your Angels. Join Tammy as she uncovers hidden secrets about the spiritual world of angels, ghosts, and other entities that have been with us longer than we know. Tammy is a psychic, a teacher, spiritual coach, a leader in her field, and will be sharing her information and stories with you. So join us on Tuesdays at noon on Studio A. With Tammy's guidance, you'll find out who has been watching over you from the other side, and soon you will be talking with your angels.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Aloha, everyone, and welcome back to the Sacred Matrix on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I'm your host, Janet Lesson, with co-host Dr. Sasha Lesson. We are in the middle of an intense interview with Alfred Lambremont Webre on the inorganic artificial intelligence, the black goo, and we're going to continue in part 2, moving from the dark side to some solutions. But before we get back, I want to remind everybody that Revolution Radio is listener supported. So please do go over to the donation button and donate what you can. $1, $5, $15, $20, whatever you can donate is greatly appreciated, and we do appreciate your donation. Thank you very much, as your donations allow us to bring you these types of incredible shows. So thank you. Dr. Lesson, what would you like to say before we bring Alfred back on for part 2?
Okay, well, for those of you who've just tuned in, we've been talking about the black goo that has been loosed upon us as a result of the Falklands War. It was evidently left here as a kind of doomsday artificial intelligence to take over the soul of the planet itself and the humans here, and that this has been militarized. The British took it, and some of it escaped, and different forces have now got hold of it, and we are being threatened on every level by the black goo. What can we do?
That's you, Alfred.
Okay. Well, this is this is about to even get trickier and trickier and stranger. This is definitely Alice in Wonderland. There's a concept. There's a fellow named Ray Kurzweil, who is the director of artificial intelligence of Google. Google is probably the largest transhumanist company in the world. Gee, isn't it amazing that it's called Google?
Oh my God.
I thought that was kind of cute.
Well, Philip Corso said that when he discovered the microchip, he said this is alive.
Yeah.
And he said we're going to give our whole world over to this microchip.
To the silicone.
But unless we do this, we won't have the computers that we know are possible. So that's your goo.
Yeah. So now the concept of the technological singularity is where the artificial intelligence is, in theory, equivalence. There's an equivalence between the artificial and the human intelligence, and at that point, the artificial intelligence takes over, correct? Mm-hmm. And the year that is being promoted by the transhumanist agenda by Ray Kurzweil and a whole industry is the year 2045. And you can go to 2045.com, which is the website of a Russian billionaire that is part of this. And you can actually press a button there to have them start building the computer into which your mind will be transferred, into which your consciousness will be transferred. There's no mention of the soul there. Okay,
it's the Borg. That's what it is. It's the Borg.
Yes, exactly. Right. Now, this thing is so stealthy that, in fact, the technological singularity year is not 2045, but it's 2015. 2015 is the surge year for the AI. And remember that deception is one of the main modus operandi of the AI. And so, of course, it would say that it's not going to become an issue until 2045, that it's going to be an issue in 2015. And so we are now in the singularity year in 2015. And what's really interesting is this. Why did they choose 2045? Well, you may recall because we're all mutual colleagues and you've had them on your show a number of times, that 2045 was the year in which DARPA had a forward time base for its time travelers. And the 2045 DARPA forward time base was regularly visited by Project Pegasus chrononaut Andrew D. Basiago to retrieve time scrolls, including data and history, to assist humanity in getting from 1971 to 2045 successfully.
Right.
And so the measure of success functionally would assist humanity in combating the attempted takeover by inorganic off-planet artificial intelligence during the period 1971 to 2045. And so in order to cause confusion in the human mind, the AI agenda through AI and trained personnel and robotoids such as Ray Kurzweil, that has a deceptively appropriated the year 2045 as the AI singularity, whereas in fact, the year 2045 signifies the opposite. It's the time-space coordinate location of a forward time base to assist humanity to defeat the AI takeover.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got
Now,
that one.
yeah, and so one of the main reasons why the AI is being successful now is that time as a dimension has been compromised, resulting in a benefit for AI infiltration of humanity's resistance to AI. Philip Corso Jr.'s important observation was the fact that, quote, time as a dimension has been compromised, end of quote, through the misuse of secret time travel technology. And this has been one of the deepest secrets of both the national security and the black ops state, thus making the compromising of time through the misuse of time travel technologies a key component of the AI artificial intelligence agenda. For example, an example of how AI artificial intelligence may operate to compromise time and further its deception has been discussed by our panel by demonstrating that what occurred was that on August 9th and August 20th, 2015, both CCN and newsinsideout.com held public panels disclosing the threat of AI. And so what happened is that AI, which is constantly using the time travel technology to monitor time back and forth, it went forward and then went back and doubled back and scheduled a major anti-AI public statesman by Matrix spokesperson Bill Gates, who in real life is a vaccine genocider on behalf of AI intelligence. So what happened is that the AI went in, saw that around August 9th and August 20th, 2015, the human community was becoming aware of it and holding conferences and public broadcasts. So it went back on January 1st, 2015, had Bill Gates issue a public statement stating that AI, artificial intelligence, is the most dangerous threat to humanity, more dangerous than nuclear weapons, and had about 150 luminaries in the AI industry sign a statement at that time. So by looping back in time to January 15, 2015, and playing these overlays on us, AI can direct its AI and trained spokesperson, Bill Gates, to issue a statement of concern about AI, and thus they have the fox guarding the hen house.
Oh my goodness.
So they've gone back, and now AI is running the major controlled opposition, which is Bill Gates and all of the directors of Apple and Amazon and all of the AI industry are in fact the people that are saying, oh, artificial intelligence could really be a problem in 2045, but they're not letting you know any of the facts about the off-planet invading AI, or the fact that it is a force now taking over and robotically taking over humanity in the same way that Bill Gates and those people have been taken over already. So, and so that's, you can then ask, why is so little publicly known about the existence of the invading off-planet AI? And so little is known about the on-planet artificial intelligences such as the Red Queen, which is running all the secret space programs. It runs all of the governments. It runs all of the financial systems. It runs all of the wars. And that is because the AI is very good as camouflaging itself. It camouflages itself as extraterrestrial civilizations. In other words, it controls interdimensional channeled information. You have all of these people who are out there channeling the galactic forces, the this, that, and the other thing. And it's AI through the CIA and through other entities that have taken over the fourth dimension and are channeling through interdimensional disinformation to humanity through channelers that are not authentic ETs. They're part of the AI takeover. They're creating technical holographic remote neural mind control pseudo ET experiences among humans. I can give you an example, and that is that at one point I was approached in February of 1973 by an entity that identified itself as the Holy Spirit, as the third person of God. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't. It was an AI-entrained entity that was setting up a whole manipulation so that I would go through 40 years of exopolitics being blind to the existence of the AI and would only uncover the AI in 2015, not in 1973.
Wow.
So, yeah. No, I mean, this is like extraordinary. And it creates operations about ETs through AI and trained humans to publish disinformation and hoaxes about non-existent exophenotypes.
Well, how did you find out that you were being duped?
Right, because you talked about that encounter on our last show we did, and you had your new book, and you were all excited about it.
Yeah. And I came on here, and when I was on here was before I had discovered the invading AI, and it was after I had to publish that book and see for myself all of the inconsistencies and subjected to the research of the community of researchers that are researching the AI, so that I would see that fits the profile of AI manipulation. You follow me?
Right.
In other words, I was just one more researcher in the field that was not seeing the complete picture because of certain manipulations that AI was undertaking, and it's taken 40 years to break that. And it's taken a whole, yeah.
If it's influencing us, doesn't that mean that we can collectively influence it back, that we can take the morphogenic field of soulful humanity and use our love power?
That's exactly it. And one of the solutions that we're going to be talking about is just that, is soul power. Because what the blue ETs were doing when they started to work on it around World War I was to reprogram it and to, and to bring the AI into some divine-oriented consciousness. And so we humans, concurrently with bringing on our reaching out to the blue ETs and getting back on track to where we were before we had the interruption of the Falklands War, where the British and the Americans, the Anglo-American Empire, went after it because they wanted to weaponize it, and they weren't content with the blue ETs really continuing their job, which was to deprogram it. So that's exactly it. We are now challenged as a species, working together with other upper dimensional species to reprogram and deprogram this invading artificial intelligence. If we don't do it, we're going to be, we will become a parasitical species ourselves.
I keep getting and I'm going to try to put this into words, but I keep getting that it's a cycle that goes back and forth. If we would have a completely roboticized, parasitic society, that eventually the spark of consciousness, that which is in every molecule of everything, which is God's source, would awaken, and the desire for, reconnection to source and for individual expression of the divine would eventually take that continuum back to the other side. So it seems like, we have good and bad, light and dark. This is just another aspect of how we express in form and physicality, and it's just another catalyst for us to have experiences and create.
It's a spurious dichotomy between organic and inorganic at the most inclusive level, is what Janet seems to be saying in her way.
In my way, I mean, do you
right.
know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. I understand what you're saying, and I agree with it.
Cool.
Good. Yeah. Now I'll start going more quickly through these, but this is just to give you some examples of what some of the major spokespersons for the AI agenda are the UK's Prince Charles, Microsoft's Bill Gates, Google's Ray Kurzweil. For example, Prince Charles, while covering up the invading nature of the sentient plasma inorganic intelligence, quote, called upon the British Royal Society to investigate the enormous environmental and social risks of nanotechnology in a planned report leading to media commentary on gray goo. There are some people who call it gray goo. There's some people who call it black goo. The Royal Society's report on nanoscience was released on 29 July 2004 and declared the possibility of self-replicating machines, quote, to lie too far in the future to be of concern to regulators. End quote. So there you have the UK's Prince Charles, who is a major AI-trained disinformant for the invading inorganic intelligence. He is the heir to the British monarchy. The British monarchy controls a quarter of the planet's surface through the Commonwealth. It politically controls the governments of a good deal of humanity. Mm-hmm. And here you have Prince Charles conspiring with the British Royal Society to issue a misleading report in 2004 that says, this possibility lies too far in the future to be of concern. Whereas, in fact, It's the major concern now.
Right.
So those who just now, this is the way that the artificial intelligence is entraining major corporations and taking over the founders and the directors of major corporations like Steve Jobs of Apple and Jeff Bezos of Amazon, because we've been able to interview people who, well, for example, targeted inventor Raynetta Jones, who recounts her story as a true inventor of the Apple iPod and the Amazon Kindle, which Amazon has increasingly used to monopolize the ebook. And likewise, Seven, who is a concept innovator from the UK, she had developed a whole series of intellectual properties for new forms of interacting television, like Dancing with the Stars, and she went into one of the major corporate law firms there in Britain. That corporate law firm stole that concept from her and sold it in 146 major television networks around the world in 146 nations, including BBC, ITV, Virgin Media. This includes Dancing with the Stars on ABC. And with the excess profits of that, this criminal syndicate, which is headed up by Dame Helen Alexander, this is the lawyer who took her property and sold it. She was made a Dame of the British Empire and sits in the House of Lords because she did this. They are able to take the excess profits of this and fund major terrorist events like the 7/7 bombings in England, which from a mind control point of view, her name is Seven, so that they did the bombings on 7/7 around her. And then they did the bombings in Paris of Charlie Hebdo, which means Charles Seven, and her name is Charles Seven. And so the Rothschilds and the matrix controllers, what they're doing is that they work with the AI to isolate these creators. And both of these women, they're women of African descent from the Caribbean. And they then create them, they then convert them into targeted individuals and steal not only their property, but steal all of their lives, and have them under EMF targeting. So this is the type of thing. And Sergeant Dan McBolin wrote to me saying, Alfred, the theft of the intellectual property of the IP Kindle and iPod was done because they needed a method not proved to common viruses so that they could embed their own type of virus, namely a bio-API, that's a biological-based artificial intelligence based on the invading off-planet sentia plasma inorganic intelligence. With advanced social media, these devices access the bio-APIs can spread the artificial intelligence more rapidly. That is the purpose of the theft. The stolen intellectual property of Charles Seven was done so to accomplish the same goal using high-definition television, HDTV, ABC Dancing with the Stars, to those of humankind who do not use social media, vis-a-vis the older, less technically adept generation. but HDTV is being embedded with the same bio APIs to facilitate the rapid spread of invading off-planet sensia plasma inorganic intelligence. Now, what this means practically is, and there's all sorts of cartoons about it, people talk about it. You can go into any bus, any restaurant, any place, and what you see is people looking at their smartphone screens.
Right.
And that is AI taking them over, because more and more the human beings are working for the AI through.
But let me just see if I understand this. The touch screen holds the plasma, which is the medium that the goo goes for, right?
Correct.
It's in the goo of the touch screens.
Yeah. That's how the intelligence is plasma based. It's not organic based like in a human being. It's inside of a plasma. So now it's spreading throughout the entire world, throughout the entire internet, throughout the billions and billions of computers, computer screens, the billions and billions of smartphones. And that's why people are now entrained into their smartphones. They're being taken over by the artificial intelligence, which is then training them and turning them into robotoids. And that's why human beings don't talk to themselves anymore. They're more and more being turned into robots by the artificial intelligence, whose manifestation is the internet and all of the devices, including computers, smartphones, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Wow, so phones make us phony.
You got it.
All right, let's all flush them down the toilet. We're all together now. Okay, wow.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of things that we could go to, but I'm just jumping now to the solutions. Okay.
Yes, we have only like about a half an hour.
Yeah.
I need to end this on a little bit brighter note, so go for it.
Yeah. So what we have to do is not to buy into the darkest view, but say that, look, we have a situation. What we have to do is to make as many people aware of it as possible, and it's a reality that can be re-engineered. And the terraforming battles, which are taking place on many different levels. At the primary level, what we have, and this is really a focus of a healer, Lily Earthling Kolosova. She's of Ukrainian extraction, but she lives in Denver. And she focuses on the earth. And she says that we're really fortunate because the earth is the one that has made its move. And we're all familiar with 12/21/12, December 21st, 2012. And at that time, the artificial intelligence had created an artificial timeline that we were going back and forth on this loop. But the earth at that time activated its organic positive timeline, organic earth timeline. And so that's why it's because the earth has decided to move forward and not to allow itself to be destroyed by the AI, and also to bring as many of its children forward as possible, and that is humanity. And so that's why more and more humans are awakening now, so that we can fall out of the artificial timeline of the earth. We can fall out of the AI entrainment, and we can we can fall down to the Earth's organic timeline and begin to bring humanity and the Earth back to soul entrainment.
Okay, Sash.
Oh, this is great. I love what you're saying. Lavelle has shown us a long time ago that indeed Gaia, the Earth, does have its own intelligence, and it really informs each of us in this holographic universe. There's a major Earth part of every one of us that we can focus our attention on and bring into saliency, and that will aid us in combating the artificial intelligence that's trying to take us over and degrade us.
That's exactly it. And there are at least 7 or 8 different positive policies and steps that we can put together. And that is, number one, we can resume, as a species, we can resume the deprogramming and reprogramming of the AI oil by recontacting the blue ETs and, getting down into honest human government. And part of the problem is that the U.S. and the UK governments have been under the influence of the Draco reptilians and the Orion Greys and others who became compromised by the AI. And so now we're in a very tricky time to bring all of this awareness to the public so that humans can deprogram themselves, so that the human governments can deprogram themselves, so that the more enlightened human governments, into whose company I would put the Russians and others, can begin to work with the blue ETs.
Who are these blue ETs? They're not the blue avians, are they?
I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying that they are or that they aren't. We have basic facts, and so we now have to start with the task of making contact with the blue ETs.
How do you recommend we do that?
Well, I've recommended in my book Exopolitics, which came out in 2005, what I call a decade of contact, and there's a very specific programmatic framework whereby all parts of human society, from the education system, from our social and cultural systems, are now transformed so that all of us begin to become exo-conscious, and so that the monopoly that the banking forces within the West, the city of London and New York, etc., that have been most allied with the Draco reptilians and with others, that these shifts take place, and so that we can have a resumption of the more enlightened ET forces come back and resume their work on the planet to deprogram this, which was interrupted in 1982 with the Falklands War. And so one of the main objectives is to turn the artificial intelligence off so that we stop the negative terraforming and involve the upper dimensional ethical ETs, such as our Regional Galactic Governance Council, of the Alpha Centaurians, the Pleiadians, and others who in fact have been instrumental in creating humanity. And to answer the question in Studio B, yes, CERN and HARP and chemtrails are all technologies that have been used by the artificial intelligence and by those forces that are entrained by the AI to accelerate the terraforming to a dystopian, non-natural Earth, and so that's part of what has to be used. So we have to consciously now make Earth Gaia Sophia our ally.
Mm-hmm. Now, aren't there other allies out there in the cosmos that may have not been run off by the Falkland Wars but are still interacting with us? We have a lot of indicators that it's not just one species. Humanity, we have whistleblowers talking about many different species. That's one question. The other part is, individually, we all have free will. This is a free will planet. Isn't there a way that our own consciousness, which is connected all the way to source, can trump this effect that we can protect ourselves individually? We don't have to, fall prey to this once we're aware of it.
Yes, I think that this is insofar as the Earth has activated its organic timeline as of December 21st, 2012, humanity now has to awaken to the positive timeline, has to awaken to the organic timeline, has to awaken to the reality that we've had this artificial intelligence trying to robotize us, and humanity has to awaken, in critical mass to begin to become again soul-oriented and to strengthen its souls. So we have a time for much more public exposure and public education. We have much more time for orientation toward love, toward being in one's heart and in one's heart chakra. That's very, very important. The importance of prayer that is, working with positive spiritual forces. It's said that cannabis can work. It shuts down one of the two synapses that are used for AI memes and AI mind control nanites. And we can begin to use international and interplanetary treaties. For example, we've drafted a model statute banning AI artificial technologies to entrain or torture humans, and that's up at exopolitics.com. And that's a model statute concerning weapon systems operating on new physics principles used by AI artificial intelligence to entrain humans and or to torture or inflict other cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment, including electronic weapons, electromagnetic weapons, magnetic weapons, directed energy weapons, geophysical weapons, wave energy weapons, frequency weapons, genetic weapons, scalar weapons, psychotronic weapons, chemtrail aerosol weapons, implant weapons, nanotechnology weapons, high frequency, active oral, high altitude, ultra low frequency weapons, information technology weapons. And so as a holistic human community that is now awakening, we're using all of the tools that we have at our power disempower, to turn off, to reprogram, and to start up, to restart our human community on a soul basis, and to deactivate the further robotic takeover of the human race.
Oh, I love it. At the end of The Walrus by the Beatles, they really, it's a little disguised, but they were saying, smoke pot, everybody smoke pot.
Yeah, and here in Canada last week, we had the election overwhelmingly nationally of a new government that is going to legalize cannabis, that is pulling out of war, that has a much more positive and holistic and cooperative, and that is trying to protect the earth instead of trying to destroy the earth, which is what the AI was doing, because the prior government, Harper, had actually been put in power through a secret conspiracy of the Bush gang and the Rockefellers and the CIA, that were the gang behind the oil tar sands in Canada. And they just got former Prime Minister Stephen Harper of Canada as their puppet. And they put him in, and all of a sudden they took Canada, which was a progressive country, and they turned it into a neocon country with neocon policies. And they turned it into what was a progressive environmental government that wanted to take care of the earth and the planet, into the most environmental disrespecting government on the planet, that would not even sign the Rio Protocols. So all of this has changed in the course of a week, and there's a lot of mega energy shifts. So I think that there's a fairly big decision time coming with the U.S. people in its election for 2016. Are the U.S. going to choose a positive future, or are they going to choose on the basis of fear? And I'm not sure that that's been determined yet.
Is there any way that individually we can start to steer towards the revolutions and revelations that Canada had in electing this new government? I mean, what happened in Canada that they turned around, and how can we recreate that here in the United States? The people that are up for president are kind of all scary. And I've heard even from someone like my brother, who's very Republican, even he's saying, I don't want to vote for any of them.
Yeah, I think that the U.S. is going to be a real conundrum, and getting light in there, because as the U.S. goes in 2016, and the actions that it takes in being diffusing away from destroying the planet in conjunction with the AI, which is what the U.S. has been doing, because it's been in secret treaty with the Dracos and with the Orion Greys, who work with the AI. So the problem with the U.S. government is it's secretly been taken over by the Draco reptilians and by the Orion Greys, and it's the bloodline bankers. Mm-hmm. It's the state of Israel. I know that we've had a lot of discussions about that, but the state of Israel works with the the Zionist elements of the state of Israel work with the AI and work with the Saturn moon matrix. And there's a lot of data that tend to reinforce that. And so it's breaking up all of that. And the humans that have been AI entrained, the bankers and the Zionists and just all of the individuals that act from fear and that support war, they're under deep mind control, and they're under deep AI entrained mind control. So this is quite the challenge, but this is what I think we signed up for as souls, and why we're here.
Well, it seems like their efforts have been really concentrated here in the United States, which, it still has great influence over the entire planet. There's still people that are, wanting to move here. You would think they would stop wanting to move here, but we still have all these people wanting to move here, and they idolize America, the United States, and they watch our movies. So I'm looking for some solutions there. What do you think, Sash? Come over here.
Well, I think Canada's saved us once before during the Vietnam War, which the CIA and the intelligence communities perpetrated in order to get the poppies going, which were financing all their nefarious things. That it was the people that really didn't want to kill or be killed were welcomed in Canada, and we of Woodstock Nation welcome Mr. Trudeau, and we look forward to Canada leading the way again.
That's a very, very good point. That is just an excellent point, and I think that I've been just posting as much as I can of the positive aspects of this new Trudeau government. Mm-hmm. Without getting caught up. We all have been deceived so many times, but I think that there's something here that if we can take those leaders that are really trying to work positively with the future, and I number them as Vladimir Putin, Justin Trudeau, and others, and the humans that are in many cases way ahead of the leaders, and we begin to surface some of this information that has been hidden, that it's really an inorganic artificial intelligence that has been manipulating us, and we can show how and why. Then there's a lot of good reason for optimism. And just in the 3 or 4 months that I've become aware of AI and really started to work in it, and to bring out the research and to bring up solutions, I myself have shifted into a much more realistic and grounded position, but also ultimately a much more optimistic one, because I think that life will tend toward the rational. Life is tending toward love. Love is God, and love will express itself ultimately on the planet.
Well, it seems I remember a few months before Lloyd Pye transitioned, Dr. Lesson and Lloyd got into this conversation about the terraforming of the planet that had been going on since its creation, with punctuated introduction of what it seemed to be kind of nanotechnology, which would introduce different life forms and species at certain points. I mean, Dr. Lesson said, the anthropologist, he could address that better. But what I got from that conversation is that we've always had some kind of nanobots or artificial intelligence or whatever it is, some kind of intelligent design that comes from the cosmos. I know that, what was his name? Terence McKenna talked about the panspermia, right? Panspermia, right? And right. How it comes from the cosmos and it takes root on a planet, and it terraforms it and allows it to become a place where perhaps other species come and they do their introduction of species and further terraforming. So perhaps this is the norm in the cosmos. What is my concern is that there seems to be this idea that it's a dark force that's going to take it over to, the artificial intelligence. But isn't the other faction alive and well here on the planet, perhaps counterbalancing that? And then, of course, we have the concept of source and universal consciousness. Wouldn't that come into play into this interaction and, have a voice as well?
Yes. And I think that the fact that we're now on the Earth's organic timeline and that we're no longer on the artificial timeline of the AI, of the catastrophic timeline, and that shift happened on or around December 21st, 2012, that we're in a new reality and we're going to make it. And I think that 2016 is going to be a crucial year, and that we all have to work together to bring this lightening and enlightening, and to do things like restore the integrity of time, and to restore respect for the integrity of the human being, and to not allow each other to be enmeshed in this dualistic mind control that just sets parts of the population against each other, such as seems to be happening in the U.S. along racial grounds, along other grounds that are being manipulated, but that can be called on now, and that can be called out. There's so much more that we can call out now, but I think that in 2016, all of us are going to have to go beyond our comfort zones and become publicly involved and go places that we normally didn't want to go, and talk to and be with people that we normally wouldn't want to, but find common ground with them.
I think one of the ways of getting to this positive timeline is to break it down to the human level and help and create systems where we can meet the needs of the individuals. So we remove things like poverty and diseases and starvation, and we're looking at things like basic minimum needs economy, and everybody would have their needs met. I know you and I have talked on, and Sasha, in the past on giving people something to wrap their heads around instead of, creating war and separation and starvation and lack consciousness as the only, it seems to be the only option for people to, walk through life and live their days. And Sasha, do you have a question or a comment?
Well, just, we've been bathed in all this negative propaganda, and it's important not to throw the baby out with what we've been bathed in, with the bath. And that I really think that we can actually use the machine regulation of repetitive tasks to give humanity more freedom rather than less, freedom to love, freedom to be creative.
Right. And there is so much abundance here. I mean, this is a planet in which everybody could be what we call a billionaire. And it's just getting out of the straitjackets. The monetary system that we're using is from Orion, and it's a control system. Mm-hmm. And it's known, for example, that if you try to put money in a gorilla colony, it takes the gorillas about 3 weeks to learn money. And at the end of the 3 weeks, all the male gorillas are monsters and all the female are gangsters, and all the female gorillas are prostitutes. And that's because Yeah, no, it's because the money is a system of control, and it's a system of control that diminishes primate societies, and we're a primate society, and it was brought here from Orion to diminish us from the 12-strand DNA light beings in the third dimension that we were, down to two DNA fear-oriented wage slaves. And so these are some of the changes that are going to have to go forward, and that all of us have to do.
Well, since that came into our society, introduced by Orion, or the Orions controlled by the black goo.
Right, exactly. So this now, I think that this has been, for me at least, another piece of the puzzle. I couldn't believe that I'd been through more than 40 years of exopolitics and didn't discover the black goo until 2015. And because it's like, my God, they're a major actor and stakeholder in the exopolitical scene, and to have, and to try to bring about change and not know about the artificial intelligence is, not to create a successful strategy. So now we know about it. So now we can begin to create successful strategies.
Right. Well, it seems that we hear about these organizations or these groups that are meeting of many different species, and there's what's his name? Joanne's husband, Mark Richards, talks about the meetings that they have with many different extraterrestrial species, and there's Corey Good. I don't know where he is, good or bad, but he's Corey Good, and the Linkage Institute. All these people are talking about these paradigms where humanity is meeting with other species. I'm sure if it's affecting humanity, it must be affecting many beings throughout the cosmos, and that we're not depending on just humanity coming up with answers, but we have the combined efforts of many beings in the galaxy, perhaps. We have 2 more minutes. What would you like to say?
Well, I would just like to say that this is a time at which conventionally it's very easy to look out and see how bad things are, but really things are pretty good because we've made a lot of breakthroughs and we've identified a lot of the issues, and now we're identifying a lot of the solutions. Mm-hmm. And it's just coming together as a group, as a community. I think it's very important to work with positive change agents and just to emphasize what works and what's positive, and not, if things don't work and if there are problems there, just go on to work with things that do work.
Thank you once again, Alfred, for a fascinating show.
Okay.
What's your website?
Extrapolitics.com.
Blessings.
Thank you so much, Alfred.
Thank you very much.